Welcome to June's 50 Blades of Grass, Getting All the Dirt. Good afternoon, John. Thanks for taking the time to visit with us. We do appreciate all the stuff you've done. My first question is kind of more of a preference than anything else. On hole number 16, when you leave the roadway and get onto the pathway, there's a curb, and it's a little high. And when you go over with the cart, you kind of bounce a little. It'd be nice if we were able to kind of put a small little ramp of like asphalt. Is that possible? I kind of looked at it from a drainage standpoint. I don't think it would affect much of the drainage, but it's your call. What do you think?
No, I'll definitely take a look at it. I know it's a concrete, I think it's a concrete curb. Yeah, I'll see if there's any correction or something we can add to that.
Okay, very good. So the next area I want to talk about is a little bit about the algae and the algae growth. I guess break it up into two parts. One is the stream. I noticed the guys last week were doing a real good job of preventative maintenance, pulling a lot of the algae out, and I see a lot of tablets in there in the stream now. Is there anything else that you do with the stream to try to keep that down, or is that the practices that you normally use?
Well, we definitely have a lot of input from a lot of the organics, a lot of, the rains brought in a lot of sand, just all the grass clippings kind of end up in the stream. So
Okay.
anything organic, the waterfowl, the ducks, the geese, anything that adds to that nutrient load in the stream that just creates algae and weed problems in itself. So we can definitely. I actually took a look at that as the guys were looking. We really have to go in there and actually dig out some of that muck. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's just a buildup over time. And I think our 40 inches of rain just added a lot to that.
Okay.
Because I think we've actually lost some depth in there as well, because some of it's really shallow, but it's just a soft layer of 5 or 6 inch organic sand, silt.
Yes.
So that's a little project in itself, but we can kind of minimize some of that algae growth through, in the past, there's been chlorine tabs added to that. We'll try to do something to kind of take care of the bacteria that feeds all that algae growth. So it's just another monitoring thing that we have to do on a regular basis. We're kind of battling the same thing right now on 15 Pond.
Okay.
Uh, it's a combination. As a matter of fact, the guys are harvesting a lot of that subsurface weed right now. And we have a little different approach on that particular pond. It's more of a algicide, a copper material with an herbicide to help that out. We also like to add a dye into that just to help, because the pond is so shallow, a lot of that sunlight comes right through and just starts initiating a lot of that growth along with again, that nutrient load that's in the pond.
Okay.
So it's step by step, but this time of year, it's perfect. It's going to bloom, and we
Yes.
just have to get a better handle on it.
Right. Now I noticed like on number three, the long lake, long narrow one, we were using sulfur in the past, but that seems to be dormant right now. Are you going to initiate that? And what is the purpose of that sulfur?
So burning a sulfur, it just creates an acid environment, and to that end, the purpose of the sulfur burner is actually supposed to create sulfuric acid, but it's supposed to aid in our soil issues as far as that goes. We did not use it last year. We're in the process of firing it up again for this year. So hopefully we'll see some better results. It does control algae to a certain degree. That's a fact, or I should say filamentous algae.
Okay.
But more the purpose is to help our soil issues.
Okay. Okay. I see. So how does the mechanism work? Do you drop tablets in and are they heated and it dissolves? What's the mechanical
So
process?
it's granular sulfur that's turned, in a molten phase
Okay.
is actually burned down in a burner.
Okay.
Then it by Venturi action, it takes it in through the pond.
Okay.
And again, it's just another tool that we can use to help pH and soil issues.
Okay.
A byproduct is helping that pond in particular. But since we pump out of that pond, there's a lot of activity in there. So it actually empties, and there's a lot of water movement versus 14 or 15 or 8 for that matter.
Yes. Okay. As the weather gets hotter, we got our fingers crossed as it gets hotter. Seem to have a rather cool spring so far, but I'm sure that more carts on the fairways take their toll. And what's your advice or / opinion of how many carts should be out there in the given golf groups?
Well, car traffic definitely impacts surface compaction, that's for sure. I mean, we don't really have any options on a lot of the holes as far as changing around access or egress from the fairways other than the traffic stakes.
Right.
And we can't put them so far out or so far in to make it impossible for cars to move around.
Yes.
I mean, in a perfect world, I'd like to see adherence to a 90-degree rule off the path to your ball back to the fairway, but I know that's tough to enforce. And especially when the club cars are controlled and the private carts aren't at this point. So just good common sense in navigating through the golf course, and I think helps a lot.
Okay. Great. So we see gopher traps all over the place, and thanks to the efforts of Fernando, and I guess he has a helper as well that has gone around and caught many. In fact, I recently had a chance to visit with him, and he said here's Fernando. He's trying to deal with some of the mole problems that we have right now. And what he's doing is he's taking the, I guess, the gas motor. We put a little oil in there just to smoke them out. So that seems to be the best remedy. Oh, there we go. So on a typical week, how many do you catch?
Sometimes by the day I catch like low 3.
3. So Fernando actually keeps statistics on how many he gets. If you really take a look at that fourth column over to the from the left, on April 19th, he caught 12. Wow, very good. Well, we got to get rid of these moles, and thank you very much for doing it. Nice. Is that a big problem at the course, or is that typical that you see amongst our course as well as others in the area?
It's a common problem in this area. I mean, thank goodness we don't have, ground squirrels or burrowing owls or anything else like that. But our majority is the gopher, moles. We have voles,
Right.
but most of it's gophers, and it's just a prevalent thing in the area. I mean, a lot of the residential areas have the gophers in them. I mean, it's just a constant thing to be mindful of and to keep track of.
Yeah, in fact, it seems like you almost have to commit a resource every day to that.
Every day, I mean, they're fast workers. I mean, as far as the gophers go, I mean, we'll think we got an area under control and something else pops up.
Yes.
And we do use different methods. We smoke them out using CO2. We use traps, and then we also use baits as well.
All right. Interesting question. When the team is cutting the fairways and the rough, where do the clippings go?
Well, that really depends on our frequency of clip, and as far as our, they go back on the turf surface, and they're small enough that they'll eventually degrade, but they're twofold. There's the benefits, we're going to add a certain nutrient value back to the soil profile, but at the same time we're adding, just that cellulose, that dying, decaying clippings. That's why we do aerify and top dress to minimize that.
Okay.
So it really depends on how frequently we can cut our fairways. Ideally, we'd like to cut them 3 times a week.
So speaking about the cutting, I know in the rough, it seems to have been in the past, let's say, month, rather high. What's the normal practice? What heights do you cut them at, and what are the issues there, if any?
The mowing height hasn't changed. It's still 2 inches. Again, just because it is this time of year, we don't regulate the roughs as we regulate the fairways as far as plant growth regulators.
Mhm.
But it's just a lot of growth. Recently, we had one rough mower down for a short period. It's just a playing catch up after that.
Okay.
But we haven't altered our rough height at all. I mean, our goal is still at least to try to get the rough done twice a week, along with the green and tee banks.
Okay, great. And I guess the last question deals with the grass on number 11. It looks like there's some spots where we see some dying taking place. What kind of corrective action are you planning to kind of eliminate that? That's one of our newer fairways.
Yeah, well, recently we we did go in and solid tine 6 and 11. In fact, we're doing that today on some rough areas, just opening the area up, just assuring we have good water penetration, percolation through the profile. There are some spots on both those fairways, 6 and 11. I mean, they're not very uniform in terms of subsoil, so that might be part of it. But I'm aware of those spots you're talking about. They're actually recovered at this point, but we still have planned overseeding to do and drill seeding in localized areas. So along with increased fertility.
Okay. Well, that kind of wraps it up for this session. But once again, I continue to hear very positive comments on what you and the team have done, and the course is really in great shape. So keep up the good work. We love it.
Yeah, appreciate that, Jim. Thank you. I'll let the staff know.
Okay, great. All right, take care now.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Now, don't forget to send me those questions. That makes this podcast go. So remember, send them to this email address right up here. Thanks again for your help. Or you can add your questions below in the comment field. And don't forget to give me some likes.